Hey everybody, it's Paul.
And Steve.
And we are back to discuss it all today. Now we've got a great topic, but before we get to that, I wanted to congratulate everybody and thank you guys so much. We are now at 500 subscribers. Thank you so much for everybody who has clicked the subscribe button. We have been on a brief hiatus here of filming for a couple weeks, but we are ready to get back into it. Now we will be going back and looking over all the videos, all the comments, and answering all the questions for that 500 subscriber question and answer. This video right here is going to be the cutoff, so if you've got a question you would like us to answer in that video, please leave it in the comments down below. And then going forward from now, if you end up thinking like, oh, I wish I would have asked this after we do the 500 video, we're going to be doing a 1,000 subscriber video as well.
Before too long, it'll be a 1,000 subscriber video.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. So tell your friends, hit that share button about this video. So what do we got today, Steve?
I'm so excited about this. We have done 2 videos already of our favorite musical artists from the 1980s.
Yes.
And we did the first 3 years of the 80s, and then we did the middle 80s, and now we're doing the end of the greatest decade of music ever, the
Absolutely.
end of the 1980s, 87 to 89.
All right, favorite artists, 87 to 89. This is going to be a good one.
It's going to be great. These are key formative years in both our lives. Yeah. As we're getting to the end of high school, and all of those great artists that we've talked about before have really shaped what we like about music, what we enjoy about music, what we think that music should be, and how it influences our lives. And now we get to those groups that really hit us at that key transitional period in our lives from adolescence to young adults.
Absolutely. All right, who wants to go first?
Why don't you go first, Paul?
Let me go first.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I kind of teased this topic in one of our previous 80s music videos, and that was talking about concerts in Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah, that's it.
So I saw my first concert ever in Pensacola, Florida. My dad grew up there, that's his hometown, and we would go there not often, but in my teenage years, I went there a couple times. Now, I've got 3 cousins that live, or I've got 4 cousins that live there, but 4 of us, 4 out of the 5 cousins
right.
were born within an 18-month period of time.
Oh wow!
So close all very, very close in age. And Warrant came to town.
Yes.
So Warrant as a band came out. I mean, you guys probably know this. Came out. First album was in 1989. Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinkin' Rich. Album went platinum. I think 1 or 2 times over.
Yeah. It was.
And that to me was the first concert I had ever seen.
Okay.
My only experience with live music prior to that was seeing it on TV, which is kind of a shell of that. And for that to be the first show that I ever saw was really neat because it cost me $10, and it was general admission, which means you can get as close to the stage as you can get, which we were able to get like really close because they weren't a huge band yet. And Warrant was a band that for me, it really kind of defined my music because I got to see them debut.
Yeah, sure.
Their first album came out in 1989, so it wasn't like a Van Halen or another like a Motley Crue or a Rat or somebody where it was like they had great music before and like there was a lot of other fans. It was kind of like this new fan base that likes this music. It's like I was here from the beginning.
Yeah, sure.
And so there was kind of that ownership of that. So that's going to start it off for me.
Yeah, good. So hair metal band of the 80s, love Warrant. Great music. So the 80s for me, the late 80s for me, become a bit of a shift from really hard rock music, where the metal bands and the hard rock that I was into in the middle 80s, whether it was Rat or Van Halen or whomever, a little bit of shift. Still rock and roll, but the first group that I'm going to go with is Bon Jovi.
Great pick.
Loved Bon Jovi in the 80s, the late 80s. So that was. For me, that was 11th and 12th grades in high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades in high school, or those years that we're talking about. I graduated in 1988, and Bon Jovi was that band that, when you left the football game on Friday nights, everybody was blaring it out of their cars in the parking lot. My senior prom, the theme of that was "You Give Love a Bad Name," which I'm not sure how that became the theme for our senior prom. But well, the juniors picked, and I'm not sure they picked very wisely. But still great music.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the other day, last fall, so a year ago, My son Harrison was a senior in high school. We were at a football game, and walking out of the football game where he was in high school, a car had their doors open and they were blaring "Living on a Prayer."
Yeah.
And I thought, everything comes back, especially the 80s.
Yeah.
Everything comes back, and there was Bon Jovi. So that's the first band for me, Bon Jovi.
Okay, now they're on my list as well, but since you picked them, so what's the bigger album for you, Slippery When Wet or New Jersey?
Slippery When Wet.
Okay, for me it's New Jersey. Yeah, but they're both great albums. You're absolutely right. Yeah, great band, great band. Okay, so my next band is going to be another W band.
Okay, that's all right.
And I'm going to pick Whitesnake.
Oh, yes.
So they, of course, had the self-titled album in 1987. Was a huge album for them.
Yep.
That, for me, kind of really marked one of the... That was kind of a transition band for me that went, from, rock and roll like the Huey Lewis and the Cars and people like that into more of the metal scene.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is kind of interesting because that was the same shift for them.
Yep.
That was going on because they desperately needed, David Coverdale desperately needed an album that was, sold a lot of records.
No doubt, that's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, the story behind the making of that album. And it's a little bit sad now that I know a little bit more of it because the people that we see on MTV playing that music and that went on tour are not the people that recorded.
Not the same people. No.
And to me, that's ultimately a shame. But Whitesnake was actually the second concert I ever saw.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Not on that tour.
Sure.
I saw them on their Slip of the Tongue tour with Steve Vai.
Okay.
And that was a great show as well. But so 1987 Whitesnake.
That's a great pick. They were on my list as well. Saw them a year ago here in Raleigh, and still great rockin' band. And you can even learn more about their story on there's a Netflix documentary called Hired Guns, and so you can learn even more about some of the ins and outs of that story and relationships with Quiet Riot and other things. So a great band and still rocking even 30 years.
Oh, I know. Yeah, they would have been on tour this year if
hadn't been for COVID. Yeah,
that's right. No. They would have been out with Night Ranger.
I know. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating to not be able to go.
I would have been at that show.
We would have been there.
Yeah,
we would have been there, Paul. All right. So my second band of the late 1980s is Def Leppard.
Yes.
Def Leppard is, of course, great all for the whole decade. But the end of the 1980s was where Def Leppard, particularly with "Pour Some Sugar on Me," for me just became a band that was a part of every mixtape that I had and every opportunity I had to listen to Def Leppard. Saw them in concert. And one of the things I liked about Def Leppard in '87 in particular was not just Pour Some Sugar on Me, but on the same album with Love Bites, which is a completely different sound, and it just they were a musically talented group and great videos, of course. The stadium rock videos were just fabulous. So Def Leppard's my second band of the late 80s.
So these videos are fun because it's almost like a chess match.
Yeah.
Because we say this in a lot of videos. We do not talk about what our picks are. No. And so in a video like this where there's so many great bands, it's advantageous if one of us says like a band that's on the other one's list.
That's right.
Because then it frees you up to pick somebody else. So Def Leppard was on my list.
Yeah, sure.
I was saving two top spots.
Oh no, I hope I don't take it.
Yeah, so Def Leppard was on the list. And yeah, Hysteria is just one of those albums that you can put the album on, hit start, and listen to it all the way through. All the songs on it are great songs. And actually most of them have been released as singles.
Yeah, sure have.
And have become hits.
Yeah.
And concert-wise, Def Leppard, they can reproduce that sound that you hear on the album.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, and they're great in concert. I've seen them a few times, and I would go again.
That's right. I think we tried to go one time in Charlotte to see them. Didn't work out.
Just the time.
Maybe next time. Yeah, maybe next time.
Yep. Okay, so my next one, I'm sticking with the hair metal, and that's going to be Poison.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So I think 88 is when it was Open Up and Say Ah, which is their second album came out.
Yep.
I knew who they were during their first album, and I've got a funny story about that. But their second album was really when I got really into it.
Sure.
And I felt like it was a much stronger album.
It was.
It's just one of those. They're one of those bands. Their songs are not terribly complicated, and I know that they get a lot of flack from more musical people, especially CC DeVille from Guitar Players. He just can't catch a break.
That's right.
But they are people that made very, very good, very catchy music that you can kind of sing along to. You can sing along to. It's basically that classic arena rock
That's right.
sound. But I remember going into record stores back when malls had record stores, and of course it was the big vinyl and those little CDs, but they had a wall of vinyl.
Sure.
Like these are the top albums, and I remember going in with my father. And this was when Look What the Cat Dragged In was selling a lot. And he looked at it, he's like, wow, they're pretty. Who are they?
Yeah, pretty. They're pretty.
And well, he thought it was girls. So I was like, Dad, those are guys.
That's right.
And he kind of, like, went to look at like country music or something where you can kind of
That's
tell.
right. Yeah, that was the Marine in him coming out. So, yeah.
I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was just one of those things. It was just that time when a lot of album covers kind of were like that. I was like,
They did, yeah.
So, but Poison still is one of those bands that a lot of the songs off of those early albums, are on heavy rotation.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other night after Eddie Van Halen had died, Ginger and I we pulled up on the television and we were going through. We began with going through Van Halen videos, and then that just led right into several hours of related videos, and Poison came up several times in that. So
it was like the Steven Ginger Headbanger Ball. It's awesome.
It was, yeah, and she wasn't loving it as much as I was.
Yeah.
That's not her music. Maybe a little Mariah Carey, maybe, but that's okay. So
Okay,
it's good. It's good. All right, so I'll go next then. My next band or artist, I guess I should say, is another artist I saw in concert last summer at Red Hat in Raleigh. And that is Bryan Adams.
Ooh, good pick.
Bryan Adams had some earlier music that I was not that familiar with. I obviously had heard his earlier stuff, but the late '80s was when I really became a fan of Bryan Adams, and I think some of it was just changing musical taste for me. So earlier, he wasn't as hard enough of a rocker in the middle '80s, mid '80s and the early '80s for me. But whether it was his Run to Me, which is obviously a great song, Heaven, which is a fabulous song, Cuts Like a Knife. I mean, it's just one after the other. Once you get introduced to Bryan Adams, you discover what a great artist he really is.
He's got a tremendous catalog, and the only reason he didn't make my list was he was one of those artists that for me, it's like I found out about him, and then it was a lot of his earlier music spoke a lot more to me. So it's like, okay, I kind of missed when that came out.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why he didn't make my list. But I agree, he's a tremendous artist, has a great catalog.
Yeah. And one of the things we've talked about this with Prince in one of the earlier videos, that he's almost reinvented himself with every album, where he's shown flexibility, which just demonstrates his talent as an artist.
Yeah.
So great songwriter as well as a singer.
Yeah. Also has a lot of integrity because he personally didn't feel good about the Top Gun movie and about the messages it was putting out there. So he actually passed on Danger Zone.
Yeah.
Which is score for Kenny Loggins.
That's Kenny Loggins benefited greatly. Yeah.
Yeah, but but anyway, I don't necessarily share his principles, but I certainly respect that he's willing to stand up for
He's
them.
willing to do that.
Yeah. So, okay, two left for each of us. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take an obvious pick. And this to me is probably one of the most important bands in my life, and that's me, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, absolutely.
They kind of just exploded on the scene for me. Yeah. And again, this fits right in with that idea that, I feel like I was there at the start. So kind of everything about them I got to experience as it happened. Sure. Never looking back and saying, oh, wow, look at that.
Right.
For me, I wasn't part of the Welcome to the Jungle thing, and I really didn't hear that till after I heard Sweet Child of Mine. But just Sweet Child of Mine is one of those things that you only have to hear the first note. You know exactly what song it is.
Yeah, that's right.
That's going to be one of those songs that is always, in greatest guitar intro, great solos,
Always.
great vocals, songs, that rock that my wife likes.
Yeah. That's right.
Any of those things. And that for me is another album that, again, you can just put the album on, press start, and forget about it for about an hour.
Yeah.
Because it's just great song after great song. Parental warning out there, for
Of course,
kids,
of course. That's right.
But when I was 13, 14 years old, or however old I was when I counted, 13 years old, that was kind of dangerous music.
For sure. That's right.
And that
made it
that
even more
the
appealing.
It did. It did.
Yeah, of course.
So Guns N' Roses, and I got to see them a couple of years ago, and Axl Rose, the vocals not quite there, but it didn't matter.
Yeah. Still great.
They played for about 3 hours, and there was not one single song that I can think of that I left thinking like, wow, I really wish they would have played this.
That's right. Yeah. Wow.
They just did such a good job.
That is awesome.
And that was another show that we were going to go see in Charlotte. Just again, scheduling just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And of course, they were going to be back on the road this year, but whatever.
So let's just pray for 2021 to get here quickly.
Yeah.
So Guns N' Roses was on my list as well. I mean, just without a doubt, any time you talk about great artists from the end of the 1980s, they have to be on the list. Phenomenal, not just commercial success, but their artistic value, what they contribute was just amazing. Absolutely. So I'm going to go with another group that is, for me, they were before this time. I discovered what they were doing in the late 1980s, and it's really the first time that I had heard them, and they continue to this day to be one of my favorite super bands, and that's U2.
Yep.
So Joshua Tree, of course, and then in 1989, spring of 1989, when the Rattle and Hum, their kind of docu-movie concert came out. I was a freshman in college, and it not only kind of solidified in my own thinking what a great artist this was, but it took it to a different level where it wasn't just the music videos. This was really like getting behind the scenes in their life, and it was telling a story, not just behind the scenes of a music video, but really a part of their story. And so as a freshman in college, you're trying to find yourself even at that point. And so U2 spoke to issues even more deeply than just music. They've always been kind of an activist group, and there's a lot of what they stand for and have stood for in their activism that resonates with me in a lot of ways. And so it's the sound that I continue to this day to love. It's the message. It's the people, the band, just kind of all around. U2 in the late 80s was one of the top influential groups, bands in my life. Very formative.
They're a great band, and I remember how big Joshua Tree was, and then when Rattle and Hum came out, that was a very exciting time. And they were neat because in the early 90s, when I think the album was Octoon Baby.
That's right. Yeah.
They were another one of those bands I got to see, they're reinventing themselves.
Yeah, sure.
And
they did.
And if you go back in their earlier stuff, it's like Joshua Tree was a big departure from that.
It was. Yep.
So they were another one, and now that I'm much older and I can look back, it's neat seeing how influential the Edge, the guitar player, is on rock music. Just his ability to do so much, and it's not difficult stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's just such a sense of rhythm and melody.
Yeah.
He can, and I mean, I'm with you. I really love U2's music. Yeah. I really like them. For me, I think I was going through the same thing that you were with Bryan Adams. They weren't hard rock enough for me then, so it was kind of like, it's all right, but not so much. Now I respect them a lot.
A little more mellow, that's right.
Yeah, so I think I need to put a couple years on to like that.
Yeah.
But all right, so we're down to number one for me, and these are, of course, in no particular order. Otherwise, Guns N' Roses would have been number one.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of people on my list that I could talk about here, but I'm gonna have to go with White Lion, which is another W band.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's all for you.
Yeah. So White Lion is a band that again just kind of gets talked about a lot, and they talk about it as being like one of the things like everything wrong with the '80s.
Yeah, sure.
I honestly just couldn't disagree more.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
I believe they had such a good sense of songwriting. Vito Bratta as a guitarist, he very, very inspired by Eddie Van Halen, but at the same time different.
Yeah.
And they're just songs that I like to hear.
Yeah.
They're just really cool songs, and that's kind of all I can say about it. It's just something that when you hear it, you like it.
Yeah, sure.
Now, if you're somebody that you really, really are just like just Judas Priest, just Iron Maiden, or just that, well, then it's like, well, that's more for the girls or whatever. But hey, I don't care. I love it.
Doesn't matter. So, no, I agree with you. A great band, great music. Not necessarily stuck in one genre of music, and so no, that's a great pick. So, and I'm with you. A lot of great influential bands. This is so I'm going to choose as my last one. Again, no particular order. A band that today would never be in any of my playlists. Okay. But at the time was very, very influential. So I'll kind of go that way with it. Okay, so not my favorite today band from the late '80s, because if I were going to do that, it maybe would be a Hall & Oates or kind of the Whitesnake, the other twin of Whitesnake, Cheap Trick. Yep. Maybe one of those if it was bands that I would be listening to today, because those are bands I still, especially Hall & Oates. Yeah. But I'm gonna throw a curveball here as a band that was great for me in the late '80s that I don't listen to now and don't make it in any of my playlists, and that's the Beastie Boys.
Yes. Yeah.
So 1987,
yes.
The Beastie Boys, and you got to fight for your right to party.
Yeah, we all got our license to ill.
That's exactly right, license to ill. So that was incredibly influential. In 1987 when that album came out. Some friends of mine. I mean, I can remember to this day riding around in his 1978 Nova, where the cassette player only had fast forward. So if you listen to She's Crafty and you want to listen to it again, you got to flip it over, fast forward it. And we just rode around, me and Keith Smith and Mike Gable rode around in his Nova, and just hour after hour after hour, it seems like, we're digging in the seats to find quarters so that we can buy gas so we can keep driving, just to keep listening to the Beastie Boys. And again, there's nothing, there's not a song that is on that album, and certainly not anything later. I didn't ever listen to Beastie Boys later, but that particular album, I wouldn't listen to it now. It didn't necessarily speak to me where I am now, but at the time, incredibly influential, and almost awful, awful in terms of content and that sort of thing, but a very big band for me in 1987.
I'm so glad you mentioned them, because when I was doing my list, I had thought about them. I just didn't write them down. Yeah. And then, of course, we're at the age where if you don't write it down, you forget it. And as I was editing this video, I thought, the Beastie Boys, why didn't I say that?
That's right.
Yeah, but I had a similar experience with it, because my little brother, he never really got into hard rock during the '80s. He got more into the hip hop.
Okay.
Because he was younger, so he Beastie Boys was kind of his introduction to that.
That's right.
Because that hit right around the time he would have been about 10 years old.
Yeah, sure.
And I remember he got that as a gift for his birthday or something.
Yeah, sure.
Got the album. It might have even been for me. And that was just something that he and I together did, which we didn't do very much together at that age, just because of the just the age and the interest difference.
That's right.
But we would play that over and over again. We would sing along to it. It was great. It was just a great time.
It was.
I mean, I remember a time in my life when I knew every word to Paul Revere.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
Which is, I think, the longest song at the time.
That's exactly right.
So great list, great time. I mean, and I'm kind of sad that the '80s, that our list of the '80s is over with.
I know, that's right. Maybe we have to narrow down some of these lists and greatest hard rock songs of the '80s.
Well, I think we're gonna have to do some others. I think we might have to do greatest songs that we left off, or greatest bands that got left off of our list, or something. Yeah. Just because of that. So, how about you guys? Those are our top 5. We limited ourselves to 5. Who did we miss? Who would you have put on that we didn't? Leave those comments down below. If you have any questions for us you'd like to have answered in the Q&A, please leave those. Again, this video will be the cutoff for the 500 subscriber. If you think of something later on, leave it in another video and we'll hit that at 1,000. All right, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.